Amy has joined.
Renuka ma'am, kindly mute your device. We are going to start right now.
Hello,
live.
good morning, Renuka ma'am.
Yes, yes. Meenakshi madam, it is
Yes.
my turn today to introduce Amy, isn't it?
No, no. Madhvi has taken the task today.
Okay, okay, okay.
Okay. And
The second sessions, both is sir. Am I going to introduce?
if you wish, as if
Because
Madhvi ma'am permits, if
Yeah,
Madhvi
it's
ma'am
okay with
permits,
me. It's okay with
okay.
me.
She
see,
will handle both the tasks.
Meenakshi,
Yes.
as per
Yes.
our schedule, Bhote sir and Amy's introduction was allotted to me, and I got Bhote sir's bio note also from
Yeah.
him.
Uh,
Yes.
but okay.
Are
Renuka, you
there
But
can
any
do that.
changes?
Go ahead.
Are there any changes? 11-hour changes?
uh, no, madam, your task.
Yes, yes, it is there. Uh, so that's why I called both of them. I got their bio notes also. So let it be. Then I'll resume for my college and I'll join from there. Okay.
Yes, yes, yes. Madhvi
Sorry,
ma'am is ready. Yeah, yeah.
sorry for the interruption. Okay,
No, no, ma'am.
okay.
It's
So,
okay
so
with me,
today's,
Renuka.
today's both the sessions will be introduced by Madhavi madam.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Yesterday I told her. I don't
okay,
know how it happened. Okay.
okay,
Maybe miscommunication or what.
okay, okay,
Okay.
okay.
Okay, ma'am.
I'll
Okay,
be
you
ready
may.
for both the situations,
Mhm.
Meenakshi.
Yes.
It's absolutely okay.
Okay. Okay, Renuka ma'am, you can leave. Yeah, thank you. Ankush? Ankush, are you ready? अंकुशला फोन लावा सर. हॅलो अंकुश कमांडच नाही दिली.
मॅडम सुरू करा ना.
हां ओके माधवी मॅम प्लीज स्टार्ट.
A very good morning to all. I welcome you in the online lecture series on BA Semester 3 English Language, organized by Board of Studies in English, Rashtrasant Tukadoji Maharaj, Nagpur University, Nagpur, in collaboration with MANOHARRAO KAMDI Mahavidyalaya, Nagpur, RAJKUMAR KEWALRAMANI Kanya Mahavidyalaya, Nagpur, SETH KESARIMAL PORWAL College, KAMPTEE, and Mahatma Gandhi College of Arts and Commerce, PARSEONI. Today, the session is on Train to Banaras, which will be addressed by Miss Abhirami George, Assistant Professor in English, Hislop College, Nagpur. Let me introduce the resource person today. Miss Abhirami George did her BE in Electronics and Telecommunication from St. Vincent Pallotti College of Engineering and Technology. She started her career as a software engineer in Tech Mahindra, Pune. She did her MA in English Literature from Postgraduate Teaching Department of English, Nagpur University, Nagpur. She was the topper in the department and secured first division and third merit in Rashtrasanta Tukadoji Maharaj Nagpur University. She cleared her NET set in the subject English. She joined as assistant professor in the Department of English at Hislop College, Nagpur. She has completed her PhD from Nagpur University and has many publications of national repute to her credit. On behalf of the host institutions, I welcome you, Abhirami ma'am, and request you to take it further. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Madhvi ma'am. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the third day of lecture series. At the outset, I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to the Board of Studies English, Rashtra Sant Tukadoji Maharaj Nagpur University, Nagpur, for organizing this online lecture series for the second year students of BA English. I am equally grateful to the collaborating institutes for their collective efforts in making this event possible. My sincere appreciation goes to Dr. Urmila Dabir, Chairman of Board of Studies English and Principal of Kanya Mahavidyalaya Nagpur, Dr. Usha Sakure, Principal of MANOHARRAO KAMDI Mahavidyalaya, Dr. Swapnil Dahat, Principal of SETH KESARIMAL PORWAL College KAMPTEE, and Dr. Lokchand B. Jadhav, Principal of Mahatma Gandhi Arts and Commerce College PARSEONI, for their encouragement, support, and leadership. I would also like to acknowledge the hard work of the coordinators, Dr. Madhavi Moharil, Dr. Meenakshi Vasnik, Dr. Renuka Roy, and Professor Pramod Gorde, whose dedication has ensured the smooth functioning of this lecture series. I feel truly honored to be part of this initiative. Thank you so much, everyone. So now I'll be sharing my screen with the slide.
Yes, ma'am. Your screen is visible. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So it's the title, Train to Banaras by Dr. Prantik Banerjee. Today we are going to discuss Train to Banaras. It's a reflective prose by Dr. Prantik Banerjee. So at first, it looks like a story just about a train journey. But then as we read the story carefully, we see that this journey, it becomes a symbol for life itself. There are themes of memory, grief, human connections, and Dr. Banerjee shows us how such an ordinary journey, a train ride, it can open into a reflection on deeper questions of existence. Thus, the train to Banaras, it blends the ordinariness of a train journey with profound meditations on memory, grief, and mortality. The story uses the simple journey to Banaras as a canvas. This canvas, it explores different human relationships. It allows us to see how this train becomes not merely a mode of transportation, but a metaphorical vehicle which carries layers of human emotions. So before diving into the analysis, I would want each one of us to pause, just to reflect. What does a train journey mean to each one of us? For some, it could be an adventurous journey. Then there must be others who may carry this nostalgic memory of traveling with the family. And I'm sure there must be some others for whom it simply evokes a sense of quiet reflection. And look at the title, Train to Banaras. So Dr. Banerjee, he deliberately uses the train journey to Banaras. The moment we take the name Banaras, it evokes certain emotion, certain spiritual quality, isn't it? So it's a city which is already imbibed with the spiritual significance. And this connection, it is what heightens this resonance of this otherwise ordinary train journey. The act of an ordinary travel, it is elevated by adding Banaras to the title. So again, it's my absolute privilege to be able to introduce this writer. It's Professor Dr. Prantik Banerjee. So he is a professor of English at Hislop College, Nagpur. He is a registered supervisor of RTM Nagpur University who has guided many research scholars, and I am honored to be one of them. Dr. Banerjee is both a creative writer and a cultural critic. His published works include Poetry Collection, a postscript on missing keys, published in the year 1996, and collection of short stories, The Keeper of the Dead and Other Stories. He co-edited selections of literature from Romantic to Victorian ages and authored Cultural Studies, Theory in Praxis. As a celebrated poet and short story writer, his fiction and poems have appeared in numerous journals and anthologies. He was shortlisted 4 times in the British Council's All India Poetry Competition and featured as the Poet of the Month in Indian literature. His scholarly writings on cultural studies, post-colonialism, and related subjects have likewise contributed to literary discourse in India, making him a significant figure in the contemporary Indian English literature. So recently has won the first prize and cash award in a very highly acclaimed poetry competition, Wingward Poetry Competition. So then, the title of the story is Train to Banaras. The author is Dr. Prantik Banerjee. This story, it was first published in the short story collection, The Keeper of the Dead and Other Stories in the year 2021. The setting is a train journey from Nagpur to Benares. In the story, we have 3 characters. The narrator is Rahul. He has his elderly companion Dada. And in the course of the journey, they meet the stranger, and he's Abhishek. Abhishek is traveling to perform his grandfather's last rites. Structure of the story. So while the story, just for the sake of clarity, we are going to discuss the story in terms of these 5 parts. There is departure, encounter, revelation, flashbacks, closure. So this narrative, it unfolds in 5 movements. It's almost like a 5-act play. The story follows Rahul and his elderly companion Dada. They are traveling together to Benares. So in the initial part of the story, the train rolls out of the station. Rahul organizes his bags under AC 2-tire seat. He does it all for himself and Dada. And then there is also a slight planning. He intends to request one of the incoming passengers to swap the berth with Dada. It is here that we witness Rahul's memories of childhood travel. These memories are filled with comfort and warmth. And Rahul's nostalgia, it anchors us in his memories of childhood journeys. His recollection of the childhood train is full of comics, food, of warmth with the family. So these ordinary details, they situate the story in the everyday life of a middle class family. It also sets up as a contrast with the grief that frames the present journey. For example, now Rahul remembers being comforted on the train rides by his mother, right? But now it is his turn. It is now his turn to comfort Dada. So this shows the shift in the generational roles. Next, we see the entry of the fellow passenger. He's a mysterious stranger, isn't it? So there is this boy. He is in green polo t-shirt. He's short, he's frazzled, he's carrying the student's bag. And the course of the journey, we discover more details about him. We know that his name is Abhishek and the purpose of his journey. So Abhishek shares his grief about his grandfather's death, which highlights the persistence of loss across generations. Rahul manages to exchange a berth for Dada and all, but structurally, if you look at the figure of Abhishek, the character, he's a bridge figure. His presence ensures that the story doesn't merely remain as a private grief, but it moves outward into a shared experience. And then let's talk about Dada. So Dada's presence in the story is very important. We see him as a respected writer who represents authority and wisdom. But then he's also someone who is very vulnerable. So his vulnerability comes from having to need the help, resist and needing help from the co-passenger. Yet there is also his resistance to being treated as an invalid. So this contrast, it humanizes him. Structurally, his presence shifts the tone from nostalgia and service to confrontation with age and mortality. For example, when Rahul reaches to steady him, Dada, he shrugs it off. He shrugs off being helped and he says, "Don't treat me like an invalid." So this signals his dignity, but then it also shares the silent fear, a fear of dependence. Then we have flashbacks. In fact, we have two strands of flashbacks. The first one is Rahul's memory of his father's rituals, and the second is Dada's flashback. It has his unfulfilled desires. It's a memory of grief. So these flashbacks open the narrative outward, while it also connects the present grief to the inherited rituals and unfulfilled desires. Structurally, they function as echoes, echoes that reverberate through the story, that reminds us that grief can never be isolated. Grief is something that always threads through the memory. And then the closure, the ending. So the ending is beautiful. It has the imagery of stars that can be seen through the train roof, the glow of the lamp, the river Ganga, which is transformed. And this imagery, this collective imagery, it transforms the narrative. It lifts the story to a symbolic level. And what began as a personal, intimate journey, it becomes universal. It becomes cosmic. So the structure, it moves from ordinary details of profound reflections, and it shows how simple events can open up into deeper meanings. So if we talk about the structure of the story, we can say that it's linear in action, but it is layered in emotional depth. Key themes. We have few key themes. Let's look at memory and nostalgia. So nostalgia, we can feel that nostalgia is completely saturating the text. But here the writer is not merely intending to use it for sentimental value. No, he intends to use it as a literary device to explore memory, continuity, and loss. Sensory nostalgia. So this is connected to the world of childhood. Whose childhood? Rahul's childhood. So we see Rahul in the course of his journey. He recalls train journeys as a young boy. But this memory is not in terms of destination. Rather, it is through the textures and tastes of the trip itself. Food becomes the strongest marker of memory. Peanut chikkis, besan laddus, mutton biryani, aloo parathas. So each of them invokes a memory that is connected to warmth, family closeness, comfort of a shared domestic world. Then this memory also has some comics, some books. Comics like Indrajal, Amar Chitrakatha, and books like Sherlock Holmes, Hardy Boys, Feluda. So these comics and books and food, all of it reflect the mixture of popular and classic influences which shaped the middle class Indian childhood. So these details not only situate the time period, it also, if you look at it, it adds an authenticity to Rahul's memory, to Rahul's reminiscence. And then he recollects how his father was. Usually, he's a very strict father, but when he's traveling with the family, he is unusually chatty, he's laughing, he's displaying warmth. So, that's an important detail because it shows how a train journey it gets temporarily transformed with family relations breaking into the routines of silences and creating certain moments of intimacy. Then he recollects his mother, how the mom would be constantly feeding him and others. That embodies affection. So we can see the emotional charge of nostalgia. Rahul recalls the emotion of never wanting the train ride to end. The train journey, it becomes a metaphor for childhood itself. It's a, it's a metaphor for a space of safety, a space of play, a space of continuity, and he wishes that that space could last forever, that journey could go on forever. So, nostalgia here is not just about the past, it is something, it's like a desire. It's a desire to freeze time, to hold on to happiness before all of it fades. And let us contrast this with his present journey. What is Rahul doing at present? He is no longer a carefree child, but now he is a caretaker of the physical space. It's the same train, but now it's a stage for a completely different life experience. So this train, it becomes a stage for two contrasting experiences. You can say innocence and joy versus loss and burden. For example, Rahul is now arranging the berth, booking the tickets, tucking Dada into bed. So you see a reversal of the parental role, the role that his own mother once played for him. And this juxtaposition, it highlights how memory provides continuity, but it also underscores loss. So the sweetness of the past inevitably sharpens our pain, the pain of the present. These nostalgic moments show how memory shapes our lives, it comforts us, but then it also reminds us of the passage of time. And Dr. Banerjee uses nostalgia not just for the sentimental indulgence, but he uses it as a lens to interrogate the passage of time. Generational grief and rituals. So here, each of the characters, we can say that they are linked by grief. We have Abhishek, a young man, Rahul, and then Dada. So Abhishek's grief reminds us of a young man's first loss. We see this grief in the way he recalls the memory. He recounts his hurried trip to Hyderabad when his Nanaji was undergoing cancer treatment at Apollo Hospital. And despite the medical intervention, his grandfather dies. For Abhishek, this grief is fresh. It is raw and unprocessed. His act of immediately asking for Dada's autograph and trying to preserve the newspaper photo is perhaps his way of clinging to memory and seeking solace in connection. And then we have Rahul. His grief comes from the confrontation, confronting the ritual and his skepticism. So Rahul recalls his father's death, his solitary trip to Gaya to perform the Pindadan. And despite his skepticism towards the rituals, he fulfills it. He fulfills it not because of faith, but he fulfills it as a duty because of his mother's grief. The weight of her tears compels him. So on returning, he locks himself in his room and he's silent for days. His withdrawal suggests that the rituals, while they are important and they may give symbolic closure, but they also open up painful emotional realities. So rituals may be symbolic closure, but it's also opening up painful realities. For example, there is this detail where the local pandit, he is insisting that this ritual is important, and underscores how certain external cultural expectations, they shape our personal mourning. Dada's grief. Dada's grief, it's more of a guilt of neglected wishes. It's not about death. We have witnessed grief on account of death in the earlier two examples, but when we look at Dada's grief, it is not about death. And I'm sure he must have witnessed many deaths in the long course of his life. But then, here, this grief is about an absence. It's his mother's unfulfilled desire to see bound. He says, I always made excuses for not taking her, and then I never did. So you can see there is an emotion of guilt attached with this statement. And this guilt, it shadows him, shows how grief is not just about loss, but it's also about the burden of what was left undone. And there is a generational pattern of grief. If you look at these three figures, Abhishek, Rahul, and Dada, each one of them represents three stages of grieving. Abhishek, as in the role of grandson, he showcases his immediate loss. Rahul, in the role of his son, in the role of a son, it shows the grief in the form of burden of ritual. And Dada, in the role as a parent, his grief is showcased through the lingering regret. So the story, it layers these experiences and shows us that grief is not a one-time event, but it's an inevitable human interaction, and it is something that transforms as we age. It changes as we age. And rituals, these rituals act as a bridge between generations. So whether it is the Pinddan or immersing ashes or even the symbolic act of saving a newspaper photo, rituals help the living make sense of absence. Even when the characters themselves do not believe in these practices. We have the example of Rahul, who was skeptical about these rituals. But we have to agree that the rituals create a continuity. The rituals connect family histories and they ensure remembrance. So the writer here highlights how cultural practices sustain memory even when faith falters. So this layering of grief reflects also the universality of loss. And as students of literature, I'm sure you understand this reference, isn't it? So across the generations, everyone carries some version of mourning. Everyone carries some version of grief, be it the youngster or the middle-aged guy or an old person. So here, if we look at the train compartment itself, it becomes a metaphorical site where these stories of grief, they converge like a moving shrine of memory, carrying both the past and the present together. Food as symbol and relationship building. So think of your own lives. How often do we begin friendships by sharing something as simple as a lunchbox, by sharing the tiffin during lunch with the colleagues, when sharing the tiffin with your friends? So in Train to Benares, food plays a double role. It symbolizes both the warmth and indifference. But most importantly, it becomes a medium for building relationships. We have childhood memory attached to the food. If you look at Rahul, his earliest memory of train travel is tied to the loving food prepared by his mother. These meals represent family, care, safety, a feeling of being nurtured, a feeling of belonging. And the act of sharing food also creates a bond within the family, and it turns the travel into a moment of togetherness rather than just a movement from one place to another. Food and companionship on train. So later in the story, we see that Rahul and Dada, they share their meal with Abhishek. So this is an ordinary act, sharing a meal, but it also becomes like an icebreaker. For Abhishek, he's a young boy who is still grieving his grandfather. For Abhishek, this sharing food with Dada and Rahul, it creates an instant connection. It makes him feel less lonely. So eating together, we can say, is transformative because here, at least in the story, eating together transforms these three strangers into contemporary companions, and they are united by their shared space and the nourishment. Food and disrespect. So we have food bringing people together, and the same food can also cause separation, separation emotionally. So if you look, when somebody uses the newspaper, one of the fellow travelers, they use the newspaper which has Dada's picture on it, and they use it as a plate. In this case, that food becomes a symbol of disregard. So in this moment, it hurts Dada, and it also reminds us how quickly society consumes fame and in and makes us forget the individuals.
मैं सिरे से लगाते ठीक है
So the act of eating here, it distances people instead of bringing them together, instead of bringing them closer. Thus, food in the story, It is never about just survival. It is a social and emotional connector. And we can say that food can never be neutral because it's charged with emotion. It carries emotions. When Rahul remembers his mother's food, we see love preserved in memory. When the meal is shared between the strangers in the train compartment, we see them becoming companions. And then, when the newspaper is stained with food, we see respect being consumed and disregarded. Through these moments, the writer shows us how food binds or breaks human relationships. The writer's identity. So, the writer here that I'm mentioning is Dada. So, Dada is a famous writer, but his fame is shown in a very funny and sad way. Rahul notices this colored photograph of Dada and it's on the newspaper. And in this photo, it shows him as a very young, dashing fellow. He's distinguished looking. He's dressed in a tweed jacket and a black turtleneck. This photo is taken by a renowned photographer and it reveals the face of Dada as a respected writer. The newspaper, however, is now stained. It's stained with the meal. And this sets up a contrast with the grandeur of Dada's image. His picture is on the newspaper, but then the newspaper is also used to eat food, and therefore it is stained with oil and food crumbs. So momentarily, Rahul feels very angry. He feels annoyed at this disrespect. But Dada has, very dark sense of humor. He laughs it off. And then he says, this could have been much worse. So this moment, it is humorous, but it is also very serious. It reminds us of the transience of public recognition. It shows the fragility of fame, how recognition can fade or be treated even casually. While Dada laughs about it, it makes us ponder, it makes us think, it makes us raise questions. What really lasts in this life? Is it fame? Is it relationship? Or is it something else entirely? Then we see how Abhishek, in his youthful innocence, he carefully preserves that newspaper. And that beautifully contrasts with its disposability in the hands of others. So the narrative raises a fundamental question: what outlasts us? Is it our words? Is it our social recognition? Or the private bonds of love and memory? So many questions simply from that photo in the newspaper. And the writer, Mr. Banerjee, Dr. Banerjee, he resists giving us an answer and leaves the tension unresolved. The train as metaphor. The train as metaphor and liminal space. So here we can say, like, I began the discussion, I began the analysis by making a statement that the setting of the story is in this train, in the journey, the train journey that begins from Nagpur to Banaras. But now I'm going to add on to that and say that this train, it is much more than a setting. It is the central metaphor of the narrative. It stands for the journey of life. So the train's motion, it signifies the passage of time. And the parallel tracks, it suggests life's dualities. Dualities like life and death, youth and old age, memory and oblivion. And then the destination, Banaras, it's not just any place in the city, right? It's a city which is linked with death. Yet, it is also a city which is linked with spirituality. It is a symbol of release, purity, and continuity. So, the train journey, it becomes a metaphor for life, metaphor for the journey of human life. And just as the passengers come together by chance and then they separate at the end, the human beings also meet and part on the larger journey of life. In this way, we can say that the mundane act of travel, it becomes a profound meditation on human existence. And the train is also a liminal space, which means a threshold. So it's a liminal space, a threshold where identities, emotions, and destinies meet. It's a space of transition. Why? Because let us look at the passengers, right? Just as the passengers they move from station to station, the characters are also moving and people are moving. Where are they moving? They are moving between the stages of life. Rahul between doubt and responsibility. Abhishek between youth and adulthood. Dada between life and mortality. Train is also a space which breaks social boundaries. So, in the train compartment, we can see that the strangers, they may not know each other, but then still they eat together, they share their stories, and momentarily they become a community. And the hierarchy of age, class, fame, all of it becomes like it's removed altogether. It softens inside this temporary world. We have an example again with Abhishek. In the beginning, he's mere stranger. We don't know anything about him. But through the conversations, through the food that is shared, and the mutual empathy, he becomes part of the story, the collective story of Dada and Rahul. So this transformation, it is only possible in the liminal space of train, where the normal boundaries completely dissolve. Character study. So we can say that the writer has carefully chosen these characters and he structures his story around these three characters, these three figures Abhishek, Rahul, and Dada. And each one of them is representing a distinct stage in the life's journey. Together, they create a generational triad. Rahul, he stands for the middle aged caretaker. He embodies the middle generation. This generation it's burdened with responsibility, yet caught in memory. He recalls the carefree playfulness of his childhood, laughing with Dada as a young boy, managing the practical tasks like arranging the trip, booking the tickets, caring for the old man. So Rahul carries a private grief as well. While performing the practical tasks, he also carries a private grief, as seen in his recollection of performing the Pindadan for his father in Gaya. Initially skeptical about the ritual, he nonetheless undertook it out of duty, a sense of duty. And returning home, he is overwhelmed, he is silent for many days. So, this moment, it shows how Rahul stands between the rational doubt of a modern life and the emotional weight of the inherited traditions. His position is both tender and conflicted. He becomes the bridge figure who holds past and future generations together. Then we look at Dada. Dada is a proper representation of the older generation. He represents age, wisdom, and also regret. So, once celebrated as a writer, his photograph appeared in the newspaper. But now, today, he is confronted with his fragility. Dr. Banerjee shows how fleeting fame can be. The same newspaper with Dada's image ends up as a wrapping for food. And this remarkably is a signal, right? It signifies the impermanence of public recognition. Dada also carries with him a deep regret, a regret that comes with unfulfilled wish. He never managed to fulfill his mother's wish to visit Benares, and that is a memory that continues to haunt him. So we can say that his character it oscillates between being a revered figure respected by Rahul and Abhishek, and then it oscillates to a vulnerable old man, dependent on others. Through Dada, Dr. Banerjee highlights the plight of the old age, where wisdom and authority coexist with loss, longing, and helplessness. And then let's look at the youngest character. Abhishek is the youngest voice. He brings a certain freshness of youth, but we have to remember this youth, this freshness of youth, is not untouched by grief. He narrates how he rushed to Hyderabad when his Nanaji was undergoing treatment at Apollo Hospital, only to lose him within a week. His grief is new, it's raw, and it's still fresh. It reminds Rahul of his own early experience of loss. At the same time, Abhishek's reverence for rituals, reverence for elders, a respect for elders, it shows his openness to learning from both Rahul and Dada. For him, this journey is not just physical journey. It is symbolic for him. It is a part of growing up, and it is a part of recognizing that grief and remembrance are essential to maturity. It is Abhishek who uses the word Sangam. His use of the word Sangam, it beautifully encapsulates the meeting, not just of the rivers as the Ganga, but also of the generations, where the youthful energy, middle aged responsibility, and the old age reflections converge. It becomes the generational Sangam. The chance encounter on the train, it becomes more than a coincidence. It's symbolic confluence of generations. Youth, middle age, and old age sit together in one compartment, share food, memories, grief, and silences. Each character mirrors a different stage of life, yet they are bound by common human experiences. And then the inevitability of loss, the need for ritual, the search for meaning, it all comes together. So the writer, Dr. Banerjee, he shows us that grief is not isolated to one age. It is a thread that connects generations, and it is something that shapes how people are remembered, how people relate, and carry forward traditions. Generational differences in coping with grief. In the story Train to Benares, Dr. Banerjee he explores how different generations perceive and process grief. The younger generation, the representation of the younger generation in the story is Rahul and Abhishek. So Rahul, he carries the grief for his father, but he also questions the rituals that surround the death. His discomfort with the Pindadan at Gaya reflects the modern skepticism about tradition. When he performed the Pindadan in Gaya, he did it out of duty. It was not something done in faith. He even avoided taking anyone along because he didn't want to share his grief. So, this shows his discomfort with the rituals, his struggle with belief and doubt. Abhishek, when we look at Abhishek, his grief is very different. He speaks openly about his grandfather's last moments. He shares the memory of holding the grandfather's hand, Nanaji's hand, the way he cried in the ICU, and he remembers that closeness. For Abhishek, his emotions are still raw. He is still processing the loss. He also feels the weight of heavy responsibility of performing his Nanaji's last rites. For him, the journey back to Allahabad is not only physical, but it's also emotional. It's preparing him for the responsibility of performing last rites. Thus, we can say the younger generation, Rahul and Abhishek, as represented by Rahul and Abhishek, we can say that the younger generation it expresses grief through sharing, communicating, talking, questioning, and through visible emotion. They don't hide away their pain. They question it, they challenge it, they share it. Their pain is immediate and they are still. Meanwhile, we have the representation of the older generation through Dada. So, Dada, as the older generation, represents another way of looking or experiencing grief. His grief is not about something that happened recently. He's beyond all those recent incidences. So it is about memories. It is about regrets, memories and regrets that have built up over time. He recalls how his mother wanted to visit Benares but never managed to do it because he himself kept making excuses. So now his regret is heavy, but then he does not express that. He expresses it not through the tears, but through quiet reflection. His grief is expressed in silences, his wan smile, his tired posture, his refusal to answer when asked if he is on pilgrimage. These silences, they show pain, but then also they show acceptance. So, unlike Abhishek or Rahul, Dada does not question the rituals or cry openly. Instead, he carries that grief like a burden of memory. He is less expressive, but he is deeply contemplative. His silences, his wan smile, and his quiet acceptance contrast with the youthful outpourings of Rahul and Abhishek. Thus, we can say that the generational impact can be seen in understanding grief. Younger characters, they wrestle the immediacy of loss, they wrestle with it, and it shows their vulnerability and doubt. The older characters carry grief as a burden of memory. They are more stoic, but their silences often reveal unspoken pain. Notice, if you notice in the story, Abhishek, he cannot stop talking about his Nanaji. It feels as if talking about Nanaji will keep him still alive a little bit longer, at least in the memory of it. And we can compare this to Dada. Dada barely speaks about his mother's wish, but he carries the silence of regret in his body language. So Rahul is the character that stands in between. He questions the traditions, the struggles, and then struggles with personal belief, but ultimately he still performs the rites for his father. This triangle of perspectives shows us that how age changes the way we feel, express, and live with grief. Together, these contrasting perspectives create a fuller picture. Grief is both what is freshly felt and what lingers across decades. Language and style. Dr. Banerjee's style blends realism with lyrical symbolism. Realism comes in the form of details, everyday details, and these details ground the story. Dr. Banerjee gives us a train compartment, and this compartment it comes alive with details. The chitter chatter of the passengers, the drone of the AC, the clatter of the fan, the smell of socks, rather the stink of the socks, parathas, the tangy, fresh mango pickle. So objects like tiffins, aluminium foil, chapati, sprouts, stainless steel containers root the story in the middle class Indian train journeys. This realism makes the narrative relatable. It reminds readers of their own travels, their acts of sharing food, and the intimacy of strangers becoming companions. For example, we have Rahul who uses his handkerchief to block the stink of Abhishek's socks. It's a small incident, it's a small memory, but still it's vivid and it adds humor and authenticity. Lyrical symbolism. So, this lyrical symbolism takes the story beyond the ordinary. Dr. Banerjee, he doesn't merely stop at realism, he doesn't stop with details. He layers it with symbolism to evoke emotional depth. For example, the reading lamp on the birth. It is described as a magic lamp and it is linked to the Alibaba's cave. It symbolizes wonder, safety, and escape in childhood. But then later it is shown glowing with, I take the direct quote, the sadness of a young man's loss and the restlessness of an old man's search. How lyric, how lyrical. Doesn't it elevate the story? And then the newspaper photo. It becomes a symbol of the fragility of fame, a writer's legacy reduced to paper, stained with oil and masala. The stars in the sky, seen through the roof of the train, the deep waters of Ganga, transcend the immediate and suggest mortality. So, for example, we have the final image of parallel lines meeting the Ganga, and this ties the train's journey with life to spiritual destination. Dr. Banerjee's style is very effective because it balances realism with symbolism. On one hand, the details are very real that make the story relatable and believable. But then on the other hand, poetic and symbolic language. So this combination, it allows the story to be both concrete and universal. We see the everyday life clearly, but then we also sense the deeper truths about existence. And the language here often slips into poetic cadences, especially at the close, where the imagery of the rattling train, the glittering stars, expands the narrative into something universal. Stylistic device. So the writer, he has used the stylistic technique of juxtaposition, which is placing two opposite ideas side by side. We can look at juxtaposition through the examples of childhood joy versus adult grief, public recognition versus casual disregard, faith versus doubt. So, when we say childhood joy versus adult grief, we have Rahul's comic books, Ladu's playfulness that contrast with his present burden of rituals of death and responsibility. Public recognition versus casual disregard. So we have the example of Dada's photo in the newspaper that celebrates him as a distinguished writer. But then the same paper is used by another man as a food mat. And this symbolizes how fragile and relative recognition is. Then faith versus doubt. So we have the example here where Abhishek, he speaks with sincerity about the death rites for his Nanaji, while Rahul, he performs the rites, the Pindadan, despite his skepticism. And Dada admits his guilt at not fulfilling his mother's wish. So faith is always shadowed by hesitation or regret. And this creates a layered tension. Rituals may give comfort, but they also expose emotional vulnerability. And the poetic cadence in language. Again, the example would be at the close, the rattling train, the glowing lamp, the glittering stars combine realism with poetry. And it expands the story into something that is almost timeless. I take the direct quote for example. Its light glowed softly with the sadness of a young man's loss and the restlessness of an old man's search. Here, the writer Dr. Banerjee, he compresses emotion, mortality, and companionship into one single visual image. So the blending of realism and symbolism, it ensures that the story feels both deeply Indian and universally human. The train journey is not just any train journey, it is life itself, filled with smells, sounds, griefs, and memories. In conclusion, Train to Banaras, it is not just about a train ride. It is about memory, grief, and human search for meaning. The story teaches us that life's journeys are not defined by destinations, but by the experiences, encounters, and emotions along the way. The writer transforms a simple journey into a meditation on life, death, and continuity. It reminds us that the ordinary moments of travel often carry extraordinary meaning. Dr. Banerjee's prose transforms the ordinary train journey into a metaphor for humans searching for meaning. The story closes with an open, almost spiritual vision: the rattling train, the stars, and the river Ganga, suggesting that life itself is a journey moving towards something beyond. So this story, it reminds us that literature at its best reveals extraordinary within the ordinary. To close, I would again invite you to reflect personally. Think of a journey you have taken. What emotions did it carry with it? Did you meet someone who altered your way of thinking? Or did the journey itself become transformative? Like Dr. Banerjee's characters, we too carry our memories, our griefs, and our hopes within us wherever we go, whenever we travel. Thus, journeys in literature often mirror journeys of life. Train to Banaras is not just about reaching a sacred city, but about acknowledging the sacredness of memory, grief, and companionship itself. Thank you.
Madhavi madam.
It was indeed a very good presentation on Train to Banaras, a story by Dr. Banerjee. You covered all the aspects of the prescribed story in a very nice way, ma'am. It
Thank
will
you so much.
surely be very beneficial to the students. On behalf of the host institutions, I express a sense of thankfulness to you. Thank you, Abhirami ma'am. Thank you so much.
I would also like to thank again the Board of the Studies, along with the collaborating institutions and our respected organizers and the coordinators for giving me this opportunity to be part of this enriching lecture series. I am truly grateful to all of you for your patience and attentive listening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Meenakshi madam, should we proceed with the next session?
Hello, Madhavi. Madhavi madam. Hello, Madhavi madam.
Oh, madam. हाँ.
Let Sudesh sir join. Just wait a few minutes. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I take your leave now.
क्योंकि वो दिखाना भी पड़ता है अपने को फिजिकल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर क्या क्या खर्चा किए अपन ने
Dear students, so Sudesh sir will be joining very soon.
वो समझा हाँ जैसे चाय कॉफी ना पहले बाबा जी हाँ मुझे नहीं पता नहीं ऐसे देखता है
मैडम वास्तव में कुछ बताते भी नहीं है मैम क्या होता है और ठीक है
Anjali Parthy, please mute your device.
दिसंबर में वो काम कर लीजिए लास्ट से यहाँ पे देते हैं
Hello, Sudesh sir, have you joined?
Yes,
Hello.
I'm there.
Yes. Okay. Madhvi ma'am. Huh. Sudesh sir has
Yes, madam.
joined.
Should I start?
Yes.
Good morning. Good morning.
Yes. Good
Good morning,
morning.
Sudesh sir.
Good morning, sir.
Madhvi ma'am, please continue.
Thank you so much. Proceeding further to the next session, it will be delivered by Dr. Sudesh Bhote sir. Bhote sir is working as an associate professor at Madhukar Rao Vasnik PWS College, Nagpur. He is an active EC member of Association of English Studies of India and an executive member of Ambedkarite Movement of Culture and Literature. He has presented and published many research papers at national and international level. Three book publications are to his credit. Today, sir will have the presentation on Anthem for Doomed Youth, a poem by Wilfred Owen. On behalf of the host institution, sir, I welcome you and request you to take it further. Over to you,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Meenakshi madam, I have shared PPT. Can you please run it?
Not yet, sir.
I have sent it.
Yeah, it is visible now.
Yeah. Thank you. Can you scroll it so that we can understand if it is working? Yeah. Yeah, good. Good morning, friends. And first of all, I take this opportunity
Good morning, sir.
to congratulate MANOHARRAO KAMDI Mahavidyalaya, PORWAL College, and RAJKUMAR KEWALRAMANI College, and all the faculty members, those who have initiated this novel online teaching, and I suppose it is continued from last few years in the interest of students. And every year, these colleges put efforts and uh, initiate such lecture series so that students get exposure to different faculties from different college, expertise from different college, so that they can learn from them the literature they study in the syllabus. Today we will study very important poem of Wilfred Owen. Is entitled Anthem for Doomed Youth. Now you see, the last century have witnessed two consecutive wars, World War One and World War Two. Within say 20 years, Second World War was initiated, and the brutalities and the sorrows and the horrors of the World War One was not yet over, and the World War Two initiated in the world. And uh, in this war, we see that billions of lives have perished. So you see, being a youth, how do you think of the war? This is what the poem imbibed with many meanings, or many aspects of meanings are there that makes us or compels us to be introspect, whether these wars are really needed to us, whether we would see beyond our lives the necessity of such wars, because it brings nothing but the disasters to the human being. You see, on one hand, nationalism is being sung. Now you see the political leaders and the ideologue of these politicians or political ideologies, they will sing the glory of the war. They will make you, flow in the nationalism, in patriotic, and that you have to fight such war. You should be alert and all. But you see, at the end, you see the realities are very different. In the name of nationalism, you can sing, glories of the war, but on the other, you have to see the sorrows behind it. You see, some years back, we were in the war, and journalists were visiting the border areas. So one of the journalists went to the a town or a village, no man's land, we can say, close to the no man's land, and he met that woman who lost her son in the war as a soldier. And the journalist asked her about the martyrdom of her son, and told her that your son got martyrdom and he'll be always remembered by the country. And the mother was not ready to accept that glorification. And she said, "Look, friend, look, son, I have lost my son this side. But even mothers on the other side have lost sons too." So in this way, the message of the mother was clear, because she is the mother, and mothers are available on either sides of the countries or the border, and they borne the losses, they borne the suffering for innumerable time, and therefore we have to look the war from different perspectives. Now in this poem, Anthem for Doomed Youth. Now, this title itself is ionic one. You see, anthem is always, sing for the country. Anthem is related to the country. Okay, now you always gather for prayer and assemble for prayer, and you say your anthem for your country, and it fills you with the nationalism flavor, patriotism, and all. You become emotional for your country. But you see, at the same time, writer is talking about doomed youth. Now, a man, young man, he has not yet got married. He has his hopes for the future career. He also have dreams to get married to some beautiful women. But at the same time, you see that he was forced to fight war, and not in his own country, but at distant places in Europe. You see, this writer, Wilfred Owen, fought war in France and he made his martyrdom in France itself. So you see that this title itself gives us an idea how a youth is thinking about his youth life. So every youth has expectation about his life. He has dreams to cherish, but he is not allowed to cherish his dream being a soldier because he is often went to his national duties. So this poem lament upon the situation. He laments upon the soldiers who fight war. You see, in the title page, I have given the picture of the poet Wilfred Owen, and this is a war poet. And there are some other war poets are as well. Those who were writing about the brutalities of the war. They were writing about the horrors of the cannons and the battle guns. You see how these battle make them crazy. They talk about that. But on the other hand, they try to give a message to humanity. Remain abstain from such wars because they bring disaster but nothing. So here you see that behind this picture, I have given the you see the first draft of the poem uh, written by the writer Anthem for Doomed Youth. You see, you could see the handwriting of the writer. The same poem he refined and then published posthumously. Okay, ma'am, please go ahead to the next slide. We'll go little about the poem. Here you see that this poem talks about the warfare and it talks about the suffering of the soldier, because soldiers stay away from their families, stay away from their country. You see that Indian soldiers also participated in the World War I, and they were not able to return to their homeland. So you see, if you go to New Delhi, you'll see the India Gate, and that India Gate have carved the names of those gallantry men who fought for the British government, being the member of the India. So you see that these soldiers who fought in the war, they are away from countries and without any hope of returning to their home and to enjoy their family life. So you see that this poem is challenging the romanticizing of the war. You see that every alternate day or every day you go to the news channel and you would see that some or the other would go on singing the glory of the war. But you see, singing of the glory of the war on screen is different thing. Participating in debate and condemning the opponent or enemy nation and provoking countrymen for war, that is different thing that we have to understand the connotations behind it. So here the poet who lost his life just before a few months he wrote about this poem, and here he talked about the brutalities of the war, and he challenges the romanticizing the war which is going on through the centuries. So here you see that a writer who before joining the army, he was a teacher of English in the France. And because of this, we see that he was quite close to English writers like John Keats. He was a follower of John Keats. And then he came back to the England in the year 1915, and then here he was enlisted in the Artist Rifles. So here we see that his joining army, I mean his way to joining army was begun. And then in the following year, he was made second lieutenant and joined the Manchester Regiment. So we see that when the World War has already begun, he joined amidst the war. And then immediately he was posted in the France where he used to taught. Next slide, please. So here you see that while fighting the war, he experienced the brutalities of the war and at one point he was injured, and then he was sent to the war hospital. So when he went to the war hospital, his mental condition was not stable. So he suffered some neurotic condition, and that neurotic condition is called as the shell shock. So the battle gun or the cannons, he was living in that, and he was fighting with his enemies. So that rattling of the guns or bursting cannon impacted his mind and created a psychological condition to him. So for some month he was not, in condition to go back to the war. So he was put into some rehabilitation, and after that, then when physician declared that Wilfred Owen was fit to join the war front, he was released, and then again he joined the war. But when he spent some few months in the that war hospital, he befriended with another celebrated war poet, Siegfried Sassoon. And here, Sassoon, who was also writing poem, he inspired Wilfred Owen to write or unleash his mind, express himself so that he can overcome his sorrows or overcome the war terrors in his mind. So in this way, we see that beforehand, Owen was having, you say, liking for literature, and then he was inspired to write poem. He started initiating it, and whatever poem, I mean, he could write a very short body of poems only, and all of them are celebrated in the literature and anthologized across the world in universities. And these poems do certainly give a message to the men to refrain from the war and war brutalities. So you see that when he returned to the war front, I mean, he was killed in the action on 4th November 1918, and it is just a week before the armistice. I mean, if ever he could sustain a week, he would be, returned alive. So 1 week before the closure of the war, he lost his life. I mean, in a very tragic incident. Next slide, please. So you see that when we look at the war, so World War One alone, we see that lost some 16 million people across the world. And if we estimate, India itself lost around 60 to 70,000 soldiers in World War One. Most of them from different states. Most of them were from Punjab, Haryana, Maharashtra, and UP, Bihar. So these people went to the war front of Europe, and there is no record as to where they have perished their lives, whether in France or Germany, Italy. We do not have any record of them. We were not able to recover their bodies. Neither British government were able to return all those bodies to us or gave us record as to where they lost their lives. So this is what the horror of the war. You see that when you look at the pictures, I was going through the images of World War One and World War Two. You see that they were so horrifying. You know, I mean, it's not allowable to bring all those images to the screen to show you today, but you yourself can visit those images and you will see that what brutalities or horrors under which these young soldiers lost their lives. The way they were laid there for months and decomposed, buried under sand and dust. For very horrible and emotional scene to watch. So you see that Wilfred Owen give words to those sickness of war, because you pass through the battlefield, and the way your fellow men or soldier from the opponent camp, they lost their lives, and the way they are look disfigured. I mean, it certainly steered our mind. So this is what the idea compel Owen to, give a message about refraining the humanity from the war. So you see that those who died or killed in the war, they become dust. And the irony of this is that they are not brought to their homes and they are not honored. So you see that ultimately, when we live in a social life, so we want to live dignified. We want every dignity and self-respect to each one of us. Even when we die, at the end, we want to rest in peace. So you see that when someone is died and his coffin, you see that it is a kind of a peaceful moment when church bells are ringing in honoring the deceased who lost his life. So a young man who lost his life in the battlefield under the cannon, and no one is there to take cognizance of, the body is lay there for months and decomposing, and there is no one to take claim of that dead body. This is the problem, writer has pointed out. So writer want that even if they are soldiers and lost their life, why don't their dead bodies are taken back to their homes and dignified, in a dignified manner, they are given the last rite. So you see that the ultimate objective of the poem is to bring that dignity for the soldier. So writer is pointing out that dignity and self-respect is important, which is overlooked in the war. Like you see that you sung nationalism at one point, but on the other hand, you don't feel it is necessary to bring the dead body of the soldier and hand it over to the family who lost or mourn the life that soldier. So here you see that Wilfred Owen is troubled because he is directly involved in the war. He is fighting war, and here he is facing that brutalities. On the other hand, he is questioning the society, the very importance of those wars. And then he was questioning for which, for the same thing, if he was made to fight war. So here the interrogation is continuous in every line of the poem, and he interrogates the importance of war, which was highlighted or sung by the politicians. Next slide, please. Okay, so when we look at the poem is written as the Petrarchan sonnet. Okay, so in the Petrarchan sonnet, we see the two stanzas are given. First is octave and another is sestet. Okay, so sonnet is 14-line poem, and in case of Shakespearean sonnet, it is three quatrain and fourth one is a couplet. Okay, but here writer has taken the Petrarchan format of the sonnet. And whenever you read any sonnet, now you read sonnets of Shakespeare, sonnet of Milton, sonnet of Wordsworth, or many writers. So you will see that the recurrent theme of the sonnet is a love and romance. But here you see that writer, Wilfred Owen, has taken this format in a other way around. Okay, and here he laments the situation. He laments the loss. So the experiment he has done with the sonnet format. So here we see that he draws a sharp satiric contrast between a peaceful sound associated with the formal burial in cemeteries and brutal deaths amidst terrified sounds of guns and cannon. So here you see that a dichotomy of life is unleashed. So on one hand, the soldier is in the battlefield. He is amidst the gunfire and blast of the cannons, and at the same time, he is thinking about the cemetery where the final rites are being conducted. So when we are in cemetery, the things are in a peaceful manner, and church, rings the bell, or the different organ musics are operated to honor the departed soul. So you see that the rights are given very importance in Christianity. So also it has been given importance in every religion. So final rites are very important and observed by all the religion. And here what a writer is pinpointed, that why was he denied, or why the young soldiers denied this final right? Why was he left in the battlefield to die and decompose without any dignified manner? So you see that here the octave and sestet. So in the octave, we are going to discuss, or he is going to discuss, the horrors of the battlefield, and in the sestet, he is interrogate the very purpose of the war. So here, the central theme of the poem is to interrogate the war, its importance and the purpose, and on the other hand, he draws attention of the human society to look into the soldiers' fate, what he made in the battlefield. Okay, and he was denied the final right, which is his right being a human being and a part of a certain religion, celebrated religion. So this poem is run from a satire. The title itself is a satiric, ironic, and then with the satire he goes further, and the poem ends in elegiac tone. Like elegy is written in someone's death, where we see that the narrator is laments someone close who lost his life. Similarly, here the poem ends with the note of that elegy or lamentation, how he or any soldier is denied with that final right. Next slide, please. Okay, now we will read the poem. What passing bells for these who die as cattle? Only the monstrous anger of guns, only the stuttering rifle rapid rattle can patter out their hasty horizon. No mockeries now for them, no prayers, no bells, nor any voice of warning save the choirs, the shrill, demented choirs of wailing shells, and bugle calling for them from Shire. Next slide, please. What candles may be hold, what candles may be held to speed them all, not in the hands of boys, but in their eyes, shall shine the holy glimmers of goodbyes. The pallor of girls' rose shall be their pall, their flowers the tenderness of patient minds, and each slow dust a drawing down of blinds. Next slide, please. Okay, now we will analyze this poem. We will take some four line. We will divide the first stanza octave into two slides, 4 line each. And in these 4 lines, we will see how Wilfred Owen experimented with the form of sonnet. And within this poem, in a first stroke itself, he introduced musical element or symbolic or imagery of the war in the poem. So here you see, he says, what passing bells for these who die as a cattle. Now you see that now this line itself is interrogative in form. So here writer is interrogating, or he is creating a question. So what passing bells for these who die as a cattle. So you see, a soldier who lost his life in the battlefield. there is no hope the recovery of his body, dead body. And a person who died in normal condition, he is taken to the cemetery for the final rites. And while he was passing through the church and come down to the cemetery, there is accompaniment of the church bell is dying or someone is dead, and he is being carried to the cemetery for the final rites. So you see that the very environment of the cemetery is peaceful and in a dignified manner. I mean, we give bid adieu to the departed one. So there is a kind of honor is maintained. And contrast to this, the writer is questioning, okay, in what way the person who lost his life in the battlefield will be honored. So here, passing of the bell, here you see that he is talking about the ritual, final ritual, and customs, how the bells are ringing while someone is dying. But at the end of this question, you see that he talks about die as a cattle. So here, writer is giving, you see that he is comparing the death of the soldiers or martyrdom of these soldiers with the cattle who are taken to the slaughterhouses to kill. So here you see that writer is comparing soldiers' lives with those of cattle, and because of that, you see that they denied the final right. So this question is very important over here. It makes us introspective. It makes us, I mean, think over writer's imagery and his comparison, how the soldier's life is none other than left none other. He says, only the monstrous anger of the guns, only the stuttering rifle rapid rattle. So here you see that writer is personifying the guns and the rifles as if they are human. So here the guns have anger and rifles are stuttering. So in this way, these two lines are the personification of guns and the rifles. And here you see that writer, even if he is the soldier, he call the guns are monstrous. Like a monster is there and he doesn't see your emotion and he doesn't see if your life is so important. His only motive is to kill. So the motive of gun and the rifles or the ammunitions are generated, they are only to kill someone else. So there is, you see that there is a race or competition of, I mean, buying and selling of or production of large amount of ammunitions, and these ammunitions are not security. Like if someone says, like they have uh, made, they have invented some nuclear weapon. So nuclear weapon is someone is claiming they have devised. So it is not to, I mean, secure their nation, but obviously it is threat to different nations. So you see that keeping nuclear weapon on one hand, you may be, I mean, creating the situation like it is for your safety, but on the other hand, the ultimate objective of creating such a destructive weapon is to destroy humanity. So you see that these two lines are, I mean, symbolizing this destruction come through the man-made ammunitions. So here the angles of the gun and the stuttering rifles rapid rattle. So here you see that this third line, stuttering rifle rapid rattle. So here rifles and rattling, they are the alliteration. So there is a, you say, repetition of sound is there, and because of this we call it as the alliteration. This is a kind of figure of speech. They can pattern out their hasty horizon. Okay. Can pattern out their hasty horizon. So here we see that writer is talking about the prayers that are said quickly without proper solemnity. So hasty orison. Orison is related to the final rite. Okay. Now you see, when someone is dead and his dead body is taken to the cemetery, so there is a set parameter of performances to be conducted by the father. So any priest in our condition, like in Indian condition, any priest who is performing the final rites, he has a set parameter to follow. He has to sing or he has to say some prayer so that the departed one to reach to the heaven and his soul to rest it peacefully. So, if the religion or if the accepted norms of the prayer or the final prayer is made, and if it is given to the person that this is the way you will reach to the heaven, or this is the way your soul will be reached to the peace. So, writer also demanding the same. Writer says, if my life lost there, or if my dead body is lay there in the dust, I may not get peace through the centuries, or my soul would not be rested. So writer is troubled with this. Being a religious one, being a religious one has aspect of his religious thinking. So he is having this trouble in his mind that he may not be rested through the time. Next line, please. Okay. Now, this stanza is also very important. This is the second part of the octave. So here, writer is saying, no mockeries now for them, no prayers, no bells, nor any voice of mourning save the choirs, the shrill demented choirs of wailing shells, and bugles calling for them from sad shires. So no mockeries. Now here, so any person who is religious in mind, he expects certain rites to be performed. Okay. Now, the soldiers who lost their lives, they are not given the final rites. Some may enjoy that, some are given because if someone's dead bodies are recovered and sent to their homes, they'll be given that rights. But those who are unfortunate and left their lives in the battlefield and be dust or become a dust, so you see that they are not been given or they are not entitled to those honor of the final rite. So here no mockeries are related to the rituals. Okay, so they are not given appropriate ritual. This is what the you say lamentation of the writer. Okay, no mockeries now for them. I mean, these rituals are not left for them because they are being soldiers, they are not identified and they lost their lives, and the government has no time and machinery to recover them and to send them back to their homes for those rituals. No prayer, no bells. Now here, writer is confirming the fact. I mean, this is what the real trouble we also have to see. Like those who lost their life, they are not entitled to prayers or not bells. Now, people back home remember them. They remember how their son is fighting the battle. But they also knew that there is no recovery of dead bodies. So here, the final understanding about the war is that the soldier who is fighting, he has knowledge beforehand that his body won't be recovered, or he may not meet, or he may not be able to enjoy the final rites on his own dead body. So this is the lamentation he is making over here. Okay. Nor any voice of mourning save the choir. Okay. Now you see, now it is often said that in society when we live in social churning. So it is often said that the person who died, how much he loved or how much he is in the understood from the mourners are gathered there, है ना? और ऐसा कहा जाता है कि उसके पीछे रोने वाले कितने लोग हैं, इससे हमें पता चलता है कि वो बंदे के प्रति बॉन्डिंग कितनी थी जो पीछे छूट गए. So it is often talked about in the society, and the gathering of mourners is important. How he left a bonding behind him. So here you see that writer is questioning this, whether he has no such bonding for him. He has that, but he is not recovered, or his body is not recovered to, show that he is also having lots of, love and care from people. So nor any voice of mourning save the choirs. Now even if people are mourning there, even then you see that his dead body won't be recovered or won't go back to the rightful place where the final rites will be conducted. The shrill, lamented choir of wailing shells. So there is a repetition of sounds are there. Choir is repeated. Nor any voice of mourning save the choirs, the shrill, demented choirs of wailing shells. So here you see that the high-pitched and hellish noises of falling artillery. Okay. Now, on one hand, this poem is going simultaneously. Two thoughts are going simultaneously. A binary opposites or dichotomy is going. Writer is talking about the hellish sound of the war amidst the battle. Now guns are firing, cannons are blasting. Okay, this is one way where a soldier has lost his life. And on the other, writer is remembering or he is hearing the church bell. These are the morning music with the organ is met in the church. Symbolizing someone's death in his appreciation. So writer is comparing these two opposite sounds. One is meaning for the war and other is meaning for peace. And every human being is expecting and he has a hope to get that. Last line, and Google calling for them from the shires. So you see that there was a time when war were fought, and war means ultimate death of the soldiers. So you see that some years back, when soldiers recruitment were done in a mass number, so soldiers, aspiring soldiers would not go to that recruitment. And if ever someone joins, so the parents and the family members would wail, would cry beforehand. Why has he joined the war to invite his own death? So that was the time. Nowadays, you see that wars are not that inevitable for some situation. Although Europe is constantly in war, like in Ukraine and Russia, we have seen that Gaza and Israel, they are all into wars. But you see that nowadays, now youths are inspired to join join army, because army also gives you some security for your life through the employment. So there are some kind of conditions under which some youth are joining army. But here in this situation, the situation is quite different. Okay. Now here, whenever the Bugul, like you see that if you have joined the NCC, you would see that in the camps, early morning, 4:30, Buguls will be, they were used to make you awake. Okay, so Bugles is the indication of the war, and they are inviting the youths to join the battlefield. Okay, so every morning the bugle will run and it will indicate that you have to join that war. But on the other hand, you see that the soldiers who are fighting the war, okay, and their hometown, their families are in sad environment. They are mourning. They are in pain for losses they borne and losses they may, I mean, face in future because of the war. So this is again two situations are given. One situation, the war is calling you through the bugles. Soldiers are being invited, they are called to join the war. On the other hand, hometown, they are in lamentation, they are in sorrow. So these are the two situations are given in a single line, and Google calling for them from shared sires. So hometown, which are in lamentation, from there soldiers are being invited to join the warfare or battlefield. Next line, please. Now, his continued dichotomy or contrast situation is continued in the octave. So, in the octave, there is a terrifying situation. Writer has questioned the very objective of the war, and then he created the two situations. One situation, the soldiers are fighting in the battlefield, and on the other hand, he needs a dignified manner, final rights, and then he is taken back to us to the hometown, which are saddened with the losses they are bearing. And now, when we shifted to the sestet, okay, so in the sestet, first three lines says like this: what candles may be held to speed them all, not in the hands of the boys, but in their eyes shall shine the holy glimmers of goodbyes. Okay, now you see, when someone is dead, the candles are lit. And through these candles, we, offer our praise. We offer our tribute to someone who lost his life. And if he is lost his life in the battlefield, so he joined the martyrdom and he'll be in the glories of the nation. So what candles may be held to speed them all? So here, writer again goes into interrogative way. This interrogation begins in the line 1 of the octave. So the poem initiates with the interrogation. So this interrogation is continued in the sestet with the first line. And he says, what candles may be held to speed them on? So poet asks a question. How candle can help the dying soldiers in their passage from life to death? So you see, I can take you to one mythology, and in the mythology, it is said like someone is departed. Okay, if someone is died, so his soul is passed through the sea and it go to the ancient city of Byzantium, and then it passes through the fire and it get purified, and then after purification it merged with the peace, or it merged with the supreme soul of this universe. So you see that Christianity is being obsessed with such ideas, with all such mythologies. One soul is to rest in certain peaceful level. The writer may have exposed to this imagery, or sorry, this mythology. So he is expecting until his dead body is given full performance, full right, complete rights. He won't be able to available to the supreme peace, and he will be denied with the union of the supreme soul. Therefore, a Christian is here expecting a right to his dead body, otherwise he won't be able to join the supreme soul or pass through that fire, pass through that forged test and to get purified and then join to the Supreme Soul. So, in this way, this poem in the sestet, writer is creating this question: what candles may be held to speed them all? Now, even if in their hometown the candles are lit, but their dead bodies are not recovered, they are decomposing there. No final rites are being performed there. So, in this way, their soul may not be getting to that peace which is rightful, to the young man who died in the war. Next, he says, not in the hands of boys, but in their eyes shall shine the holy glimmers of goodbye. Now, it is not hands in the boys. Now, all the young men who are fighting the wars, so it is not in their hands because they are made to fight war. So, it is not in their hand to come back to their home, rest in the coffin, and and then the people to perform the final rites, and then they will be available to that supreme peace. So here, these boys who are laying their lives, it's not in their hand. But now it is the duty of the people, those who left behind, to look after, or it is the duty of government who send them to the battlefield. So it is their duty to recover their bodies and to make people perform the final rite so that they may available to that supreme peace. So here, writer is having this apprehension. Not in the hands of boys, but in their eyes shall shine the holy glimmers of goodbye. So the soldier's eyes will show the fading light of life. So if you see that soldier, now you see the soldier who are leaving their homes, or you see their eyes how they are, you say, wet, or you see the eyes of the family member who are giving him a farewell, how they are wet, because there is a fear of losing of life. So in this way you see that the fear that we can see in the eyes of the soldier who is in the battlefield. So the soldier's eyes will show the fading light of life as they say their goodbyes to the world. So while saying goodbye, you see that it's another glory, or that's another gallantry if someone is dying with the holding flag of the nation and people will call him great martyr. But on the other hand, he is in sorrow because he is not there to see how people are respecting him. In this way, you see that these three lines are coming to the lamentation. The first line begins with the interrogation: what is the use of those candles? Because his dead bodies, the soldiers' dead bodies are not available for the final rites, so there is no use of the candles. And then he come down to the last line. He made, "Shall shine the holy glimmers of goodbye." So here, right? These soldiers who are fighting in the wars, so they have sorrows in their mind. They are in pain while losing their life because they have uh, long life ahead in the life, but they are exiting from this life midway quite young. Next slide, please. Then we are coming down to the final three lines of the poem. The pallor of the girl's prose shall be their pall. Their flowers, the tenderness of the patient minds, and each show dusk drawing down of lines. So here you see that first line is invoking the dream of the young male, young man who is in his early 20s. So you see that here he aspired to get married to a beautiful girl. But here the pallor of girls' rose shall be their pall. So you see, in the dreams, they enjoy the memory of some girl whom they are going to get married. Okay, but here
गुगल मीट मध्ये कनेक्ट करा ना मला. गुगल मीट मध्ये कनेक्ट करा म्हटलं. गुगल मीट
was shielded. There was no chance of defeating Achilles in the war because he was shielded with some blessings to him. And in that case, you see that uh, Hector fall down. And immediately after, you see, after his death in the warfare, he was taken, dragged by his horse cart, and he took him to some camp of his own. And then his body was not available to the Trojans to mourn and to perform the final rites. And then for some days, his dead body was lay there with Achilles, and he was not ready to hand over the dead body. So the Trojans sent messenger after messenger, and Achilles, was remained unhurt. And then one fine night, the king of Troy himself, the old man of 80s of Hector, he, in disguise of a beggar, he came post midnight to the camp of the Greek, and then he found out the shelter of Achilles, and then he came and then he demanded the dead body of his son. You see that the king came to the camp and then he demanded the dead body of his son, and the conversation between Achilles and that old king is very provocative. Now, what is the subject for which he demanded the dead body? And he says that his son is a warrior. He had done no crime because this is the war. And in that war, one is to win and one is to die. But his dead body demands a final right so that he can rest in peace. So he says he begged to the Achilles for handing overing that dead body so that final rites may be done and his dead soul to meet the final soul. You see that this is what the expectation is in the religious mindset, what one should have after his death. So from the example of Hector and Achilles, we can understand what Wilfred Owen must be thinking about the soldier who lost his life. So he also demanded the rightful ritual due to him. Then the absence of traditional funeral rite, this is what the question he raised. Those who lost the lives in the battlefield, okay, so there is no, 100% attempt made by government to recover all dead bodies. The next thing is the loss and grief. You see that the soldier who fight war, who lost everything else in the war with his death, and family also lose every hopes for the future. So the loss and grief is very important theme of this poem, and while we explore the poem, we are going along this sorrows. And then loss of innocence. You see that a soldier is a young man. He has nothing to do with the wars. Now I am remembering one more poem of W.B. Yeats, and in that poem he is talking about one Irish airman fighting in the war. So in the same World War one Irish airman, he was fighting. It's not World War One, but it's World War Two. So Irish airman, he is fighting for the England. So although we know that England and Ireland, they were in fight, and Ireland is fighting for their freedom, but yet they involved in the war on the side of England. And here we see that the pilot Gregory, who was fighting, and while fighting he knew that he is going to lose his life. So he is not going to lose life for the Ireland, but he is going to lose his life for England, enemy nation for him. So in this way you see that the loss of life is inevitable, and these men are innocent, and yet they are pushed into the war. So if you ever go through the poem, you'll enjoy that. An Irishman forces his death by WBH. Okay, next slide, please. Now here, this poem is talking about the doomed youth. Okay, now writer has called the young man as a doomed. So the title itself suggests that their fate is already sealed by war. Okay, the fate is none other than the death, making the traditional ceremony for the living an anthem, a hollow and ironic gesture. So when you are in the society, so you'll be given a final right. But here, the youth is denied this right. So writer is talking about this hollow nature of this war. Okay, so here writer is talking about the anthem. So this anthem of youth, and in this anthem, he is invoking the thought in the minds of young men, what you are getting in the war. Like we sung the Janagana Mana, so this is the anthem, national anthem. And in this anthem, we glorify our nation. All the states are covered in the national anthem. And we glorify how we live in a celebrated nation. So similarly, writer is talking about the anthem of youth. Which youth? Doomed youth. And here, doomed youth means you are going to lose your life and you won't be given that final right. To you, it will be denied. Next slide, please. So here, the title is having the irony. Why the poem called an anthem? When the young men are doomed. So this is what the irony of the title. So an anthem is usually song of praise and celebration, but the poem focuses on the brutal realities of the dead in war, making the use of the word anthem of sarcasm. So here, this anthem is uses very sarcastically. Next slide, please. Okay. This poem is equipped with many images, sensory images, like monstrous anger, stuttering rifles. So what these images indicate? So these are the sounds of war that replace any potential funeral bells. So you see that in funeral, churches bell are banged, some organ musics are played, and the final rites are being performed. But here in the war, the soldier is dying amidst the battle guns, stuttering of the rifles. So this is what you say the irony of the war, where the sounds are different in two different situations when one is dying. Next slide, please. So here, two things are given. So here, traditional understanding of the death and new rites. So new rites are there. What are the new rites? The soldier will die in the battlefield and he will be covered of the dust automatically with the wind. And what is the traditional mindset? The dead bodies will be recovered, will be kept in coffin. Everyone else will pay their tribute, and then the coffin will pass to the cemetery and it will be blessed very peacefully with the earth. So you see that this lack of ceremony and futility of rituals, these are the two ideas are provoked in this poem. And then a last important message is there. This is the lasting impact of war. Okay, so drawing down the blinds. What does the image of drawing down the blinds signify? Okay, so here the final message suggests a lasting sadness and permanent mourning for the victims of the war, reflecting the profound grief that lingers longer after the fighting stops. So even if the wars are stopped, but people would go on mourning the losses the soldiers, young soldiers who lost, the promising youth they lost in the battlefield, they will be only mourning. So the lasting impact of the war is the mourning only, and then there is no other impression or the message of the war is left for the writer. Okay, so this is what a powerful anti-war statement. And here we see that writer is futility and waste of war. And the poem is emphasizing how soldiers are treated like cattle, like they are slaughtered in the slaughterhouses. So here, Owen has a critic and critiques the glorification of war. On one hand, you see that people are glorifying wars. Now you see every other evening you go to the news channels and you meet the countrymen or the politicians of the country, government officials, foreign ministers, and they would sing the glory of the war. Okay, but Owen is critiquing all this glorification because ultimately there is the dehumanizing effects of the war, and there is the lack of proper recognition for the immense losses. So those who are losing in the war, they are not recognized. This is what the question Wilfred Owen is created. Unfortunately, what he expected, the same thing happened, and he also lost his life. Next, please. Thank you. Thank you very much because we have covered every aspect of the poem, and we have to understand the themes of the poem. But while studying sonnet, we have to look into its structure. Students will go through lines and they would bifurcate lines and they would look into the images, symbolic aspect, and various figure of speech. Through that, we will be able to understand the poem in reality. So the basic idea of understanding the war poetry is to understand the message through the symbol, through the images. And I hope student will study this poem in a different aspect. I always recommend student to read poem 2-3 times. And in first hand, you have to catch hold of the sounds. You have to catch hold of that rhythm because poem is written in that rhythm. So you have to catch hold of that rhythm. And then when you finish getting those sounds and rhythm, then you revisit the poem and start analyzing from line 1 to line end. Okay, so you have to bifurcate sections. So majorly we have two sections in sonnet, octave and sestet, and within octave you can see there are two, classifications are there because there is a full stop after 4 line. So with the fourth line of the first stanza, you can separate it and you can analyze the theme. I hope these strategies will help you understand poems, and with this hope that student will be able to understand poems. Poem is always giving us different meaning with every other visit. I hope with this analysis of mine, you'll be able to understand poem in the right way. Thank you very much. And I extend my thanks to the organizers for inviting me to discuss with students on this online platform. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you very much for your presentation. Anthem to the Doomed Youth was composed by Rom when he was injured during World War One and was hospitalized. Hence, the poem laments over the loss of young life in war and presents the horrors of war. Both are very well explained it with an effective slide presentation. Thank you so much, sir. Tomorrow, we will meet again with another topic and another resource person. Till then, take care and good day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
बात बहुत ही पतले काम भी हो रहे हैं